curious about like how you feel by and large about Santa Monica. Like, how do you feel about as far as pursuing the arts? I know you were in Hollywood for a while.
You
What's
know,
your takeaway right now?
I mean, overall, I love living in LA. It comes along with its downsides. Nobody likes being in traffic. um, but I also find that the homeless situation gets like really blown out of proportion,
Hmm.
in my opinion. You have people, I won't name any names, but like podcasters that are out there talking about, oh, I left California. California sucks. And I'm like, well, for one, a lot of those people, I think like you don't even deal with that with a
Right.
lot of them. They're like ultra wealthy. They live like up in Hollywood Hills or in Pasadena or something like that. Um, and so Santa Monica, I love it, but it's kind of like the clean, for me, a little too buttoned up side of West LA. I live closer to Venice. Um, but as far as an artist's community, on the one hand, I'm really enthusiastic about it. I love it. I feel super grateful. I'm surrounded by creatives. And then on the other hand, there's the whole side we could go down, which is, to me, it's something I've been thinking about a lot, is like the way social media is impacting, and a lot of factors are impacting the community and how much we're actually getting together in person. So lately I've been on a mission to find as many things that I can do within reason, um, to actually be face to face with people and work on art and music or go to workshops or classes or whatever. And one of the things that honestly I find a little frustrating, and but there's ways around it, but there's always these sort of barriers to entry, which is like
Mm,
either whether or not you know the right people, or
right.
if you are just willing to pay a fee,
Yeah.
which sometimes comes along with this thing where like people pay whatever, $75 for a ceramics class or something
Right.
like that. Okay, cool. You need the materials, place needs to stay open, but the ticket goes up and up until it's something where it's like, you might not know what you're going to get for a $300 workshop or whatever.
Right.
And then I've been to some free ones that are awesome.
That are really good.
Yeah. And so that's sort of my like bone to pick with the community, is how can we balance that, and how can we do more things where also, I took 6 months off of drinking entirely last year.
Wow.
And during that period of time, I became very aware of how much people are like, what are you up to? Let's go get a drink. Pretty standard part of our culture. Nothing wrong with it, but I was taking time off really just to like super hone in on being healthy, my diet, being as productive as possible. And it just made me really think a lot about how much we gravitate towards that, rather than like, hey, you want to get together and write some music.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just for the joy of it,
Right.
which of course, like I have all of my professional aspirations, but that, for my sort of long-winded answer here about the community, that's one thing that you definitely see way more of in my opinion, in LA in general, Santa Monica, Venice, even Hollywood. Hollywood's kind of a weird place, but all throughout LA is it's a creative hub. And I'm sure New York is probably similar, and you can find people who are down to just like work on creative projects together. But something that we do in our society is we think if you're not going to make it a career, you're not going to get famous, you're not going to get followers from it, why do it?
Mm,
And so I'm trying to cultivate in the groups of people that I surround myself with this idea that like, let's just get together and have an art night. If you want to drink, great. Like I'm down if we want to have a glass of wine,
right.
have some beers, whatever.
Yeah.
That can be a part of it, but let's try to do something beyond, especially for somebody who's so passionate about creativity. Maybe we could make that the center of the night. and get together and do something like that. So I do
That's
find that there's a lot of options there, and it's growing. But I also, on the flip side, do recognize that I feel that there's this lack of community, and I think social media has a little bit to do with it. And maybe the pandemic pushed that even further, and we're
Yeah.
still bouncing back. Hopefully bouncing back. Maybe there's a renaissance ahead. Yeah.
I'm going to introduce this guy. He's awesome. I want to say that someone was like, "Hey, do you know like an artist that's like really in the thick of it, that's like in your age group and stuff, that's just like in the middle of his life story?" I think you're the first person that actually comes to mind.
Okay. Really.
So which is really cool, because I know some masterclass artists, but they're like, there's like a 40-year-old age grab. Shout out to Randy. I love you, buddy. This guy, that's architectural artist. Big shout out to him. He was our first interviewee last season.
I watched that one. It was great.
I love that
Guy's the
guy.
man.
Yeah, we still do. We keep up with him all the time.
Cool.
But if someone's like, "Hey, do you know an artist?" and like someone that's like 1-to-1, you're probably the first guy I claim to know. It's like, yeah, I actually know him. So,
Awesome.
and that means a lot to me, because I love art. And I think there's not an art form I don't like. I think I like every art form.
Agreed.
So just a like-minded individual that can honestly say, yeah, he's an artist and he's killing the game out there, and he has a body of work, and and that we can appreciate. So you are a multimedia artist, multi-instrumentalist, music producer extraordinaire, and you're a big collaborator, like you were talking about earlier, and you have a heart for really breathing life into an art community and making amazing, cool, passionate projects, which we're a part of that. I think we see eye to eye on that. And so without further ado, Brent Hollingworth, aka Breeze.
And then I also just want to add that you're homegrown, so you're from our area.
Yeah. Well, I'm home. I'm a little bit of both, because I was born just outside Toronto, Canada.
Yeah.
But grew up around here.
Yeah, get into that a little bit, just where you're from and when you first got to Orange County.
Sure. Yeah. So I was born in a suburb of Toronto, and then my family made a pretty huge change, and we moved to right around here in year 2000. So I'm more Californian in terms of my years than I am Canadian, but I will say I'm a proud Canadian as well. We got good people. People always ask, like, do you miss it? And if I'm being honest, like, no, I love California. This is where my heart and soul is. And I feel I was, for lack of a better word, destined to move here. It feels like the right fit. So yeah, we moved here year 2000. I spent middle school, high school in Orange County, moved to San Diego, was there for a decade, and then now live in LA.
What age were you when you got to California?
I was 12 turning 13.
13. So you're like junior high.
Yeah.
Coming
Yeah.
in
Crazy
hot, coming in
time
hot.
to
Yeah.
move. Like, everybody's already got their friend groups. And luckily, high school wasn't too far away. So it was kind of like a reset at that point in time.
Right.
But yeah, big transition in a lot of ways. And then also just like a natural evolution in many others.
This actually leads into my first question, and I've known you for a long time. We've been friends for a while. I met you through your mom.
Yeah.
She worked with me for a while, and I don't know how she described me. She was probably like, I work with this crazy guy.
I think she was just like, oh, you and Armin would get along great.
Yeah.
Like, you guys, and at the time I was like, I don't know, like, does my mom really know who I get along with these days? And then I was like, yeah, this dude's the man.
I was like, you're crushing the game. And just from like a philosophical approach to creativity, man, I've always respected your views.
Likewise.
and how you approach your craft. I
Thank
love
you.
that about you. So this is actually something I've never asked you, but as a musician, artist, and designer, when'd your pursuit of creativity first begin? When'd you first get inspired? When'd you know you had like a gift?
Man, I love that question because it's something that I don't really think about that much. And I feel like we all take these things for granted, like
Yeah.
our affinity towards the arts and
Mhm.
creativity. But it's really a beautiful thing when you think about the fact that like we're born with that. I do believe everybody is a creator in
Right.
some regard.
Right.
And that's a whole thing we could go down where I think parts of our society is dealing with being blocked
Yeah.
creatives.
Wow. Yeah.
And so in that regard as well, I think we have a great gift that like we understand it. We're working on it.
Right.
It's a integral part of our life. For me, I was, I guess, just into art like as far back as I can remember. My parents noticed, like drawing was my favorite thing to do. I mean, maybe outside of just like general kid stuff, playing, being outside.
Right.
But my parents could just give me a pencil and paper. I'm an only child, so I would just like spend a bunch of time chilling out, drawing. I'd hang out with my neighbors and want to draw. I was into comic books as a kid, so that was a big one for me. And I think you can definitely see that in a lot of the art that I do now. It's very like graphic. I also am a professional graphic designer. So yeah, I guess as far back as I can remember. And I thought I maybe wanted to be an actor when I was a little kid.
Gotcha.
I don't know if we probably talked about that.
I don't think so,
Okay.
actually, but I could see it.
Yeah. I did a bunch of
I go watch him.
acting when I was like, it was really just kind of coincidental that my parents or like family friends were getting their kids into acting and modeling
Gotcha.
when I was like 11.
Okay.
And so it was like, oh, there's this agency that signs kids, and it was called Camera Kids in Toronto. And they signed me up, and I wound up like crushing it for like 2 years. It's in a bunch of commercials. Campbell's Soup Kid.
Popping off. He's popping off.
Yeah. You can still find one of the commercials on YouTube, which is so random.
Oh, that's fresh.
I wish I could remember like what they titled it.
Dude, those Campbell commercials were the thing.
The classic.
Yeah, those are classics.
Yeah.
We
So
might,
that was
we
a
might
weird
find
time.
it and put the link in the description.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Yeah, please do. People, anytime somebody sees it, they're like, whoa, you like look weirdly the same. So yeah, that was a weird period of time where all of a sudden I was like going to shoots for commercials and print work. And then literally right around that period of time, we moved from just outside Toronto
That's right.
to here. And I kind of thought at the time, I was like, now I'm like 12 and I'm like, oh, my parents are going to get me into acting here. It didn't happen until much later on that I moved to LA. I signed with a agency for a while. And then while living there, I was like, dude, I do a lot of different things. Time consuming.
Very time consuming.
In terms of passions, acting is not on the top of my list.
Right.
I barely watch TV. And so I was like, I consume a ton of music. I'm the most passionate about music, and visual art is very close to
Right.
that as well. There's so many people in LA that like acting is their number one.
Mhm.
And so I was like, why don't I just, realize that these people are here to do just that. And it felt like the universe kind of guided me that direction.
So as a parent, I want to just touch on the fact, like you're a very talented musician. When did you first start playing guitar? When did your parents know, like from like a musical point of view, when were your parents like, okay, this kid's clearly has
That's kind of a funny
gift.
story too, I feel like, because my dad had a guitar, and I have this memory of seeing the electric guitar. Like it was just like in our basement in Canada. And I don't remember when or why, but he took it out, and it, like in my mind's eye, it's like something from a cartoon
Like,
where it opens up. Yeah, exactly. It's glowing.
Yeah, that's it.
And then on another occasion, I was walking home from a friend's house, and I found an acoustic guitar like in somebody's trash, and took that out, brought it home. My parents are like, where did you find that? I don't even know if it had all the strings or what. But somehow I didn't start playing an instrument until years later.
Okay.
So my parents were really supportive with art. I was in tons of drawing classes, all that. Neither of them play an instrument, so maybe that was why. But they didn't quite catch that I was like, yo, I like, to me, it's funny. It's like I pulled a guitar out of a trash can. Like, I probably was interested.
Chose you a little bit, you know?
Fully.
Say, boy came out with a guitar.
Yeah.
Came out with a guitar in his hand.
Yeah.
You're looking at your parents, you're like, I'm the real deal.
Yeah,
you guys need
exactly.
you guys need to figure it
Yeah,
out.
I'm like showing my buddies, like, look who's got a guitar now. But I loved to sing. And then it wasn't until living here, I'm sure you guys remember like early 2000s.
Yeah.
It was like emo and punk and hardcore.
Yeah.
And like everybody in my circle of friends was playing guitar. So it was like, Mom, Dad, like I need a guitar. And that was when I started playing, and literally like, it was like, oh, okay. At that point in time, you know, as a teenager, you're really looking for an identity of some kind. At least I know I was.
We all were.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I've seen some funny memes about it that are like when you're 14 and like you realize that this can become your whole identity, and it's like a beginner guitar. And so like that was me at that point in time.
Well, you know, what's crazy to me about that is like, you know, you hear about people starting when they're like 5 or 6, but for how talented you are, would you say that you started relatively late? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I guess in some senses, yeah. I'd say it is sort of relatively late because you, of course, especially like me living in LA and now surrounded by tons of musicians, a lot of people are in piano lessons.
Right.
Would that have worked out for me? Who knows? Maybe I did go through like a very rebellious phase. So maybe I would have been like,
you wouldn't have been,
I'm not
you would
interested
have pushed it if
anymore.
you didn't choose it yourself, you know? Yeah.
But I think then in terms of sticking with it is sort of the big thing with anything. Is how much time you wind up actually dedicating, because people can play for
that's true
for 5 years and really be immersed in, or whether it's sports or a form of creativity or entrepreneurial endeavors. If you are just putting in, you know, maybe you play 1 month on, 3 months off.
Right. Yeah.
I was pretty consistent from that point forward. Now, was my path optimized? Definitely not. But I played consistently from that point forward.
Gotcha.
Literally, I don't think more than a week has gone by without me playing guitar. I'm trying to think of when that might have happened on like a trip. Right. But I usually brought my guitar everywhere I go. So
I really want to get into this. So first of all, we know that you're a graphic designer. I'm actually wearing the shirt I'm wearing right
looks
now.
great,
it's a shirt
dude.
that he designed.
Yes.
Makes my arms look big, so
that's all part of the design, dude. Yeah, you're killing it.
I just want to know from your point of view, and I don't know, maybe we've touched on this in ways, but I am curious how you're going to answer this. Like, what has shaped your artistic voice the most when that comes to visual art and, of course, your music style? And how would you describe your own style?
Man, musically, I wouldn't say all over the map, but I guess artistically too, I've kind of done a broad range of stuff over the last few years. I mean, looking at that shirt, I've always been into, I guess, 80s aesthetics in a lot of ways. So that one's very 80s and just like vintage surf culture. I think before we moved here, I was already super into skateboarding, snowboarding, and again, one of those things where it's like, I always contemplate the difference between nature versus nurture. Mm-hmm. And no one really knows, you know, as far as like what percentage, how much each one impacts us. Because I do know that you've got to put the time in, you got to put the work in. And like I said, I believe everyone's a creator. And if we cultivated that more in our society, we'd probably see a ton more creativity and artistry. But then again, some of us are born with particular affinities towards something. And I really liked graffiti. as a kid, we'd go into Toronto and I was like, wow, there's art everywhere. And it's kind of cartoony.
Yeah.
You know, people do characters and
Right,
stuff like that. I
right.
liked comic books. And so as far as visual art goes, that's probably my favorite thing to do right now. Also because I'm balancing art and music. And so right now I'm working on a painting that has taken me forever. And it's also pretty graphic. And surf inspired I'm painting on a skateboard.
Right. Yeah, there you go.
And I've been working on it for way longer than I feel like it should take me, just because I'll get sort of impatient. And
Right.
I'll be like, all right, I'm working on some music stuff right now, whatever it may be. And painting takes a long time versus graphic design. When you're doing something digitally, you don't actually need to lay down all the paint. You can just drag and drop or however you work. So I would say in terms of visual, 80s aesthetics, cartoon, graffiti. I've never really been super into, as much as I love like art history and fine art. In terms of my own style, I've never been super drawn to just doing hyper realism or anything like that. Like I want to see something vibrant. I like spiritual art.
Yeah.
Visionary art. Just mashing a lot of different ideas together and keeping it fun and energetic and colorful. And then musically, I think it's all about the balance between rock and roll and like soul and R&B.
I would say that's what I would say.
And finding how those things can live together, sometimes doing them separately. And lately I'm really on a jazz kick. But there's just so much inspiration all around us.
What's your favorite thing to play?
Musically?
Yeah.
Well, I can plug my band right now.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
So I'm in a surf rock band called Space Flower. Follow us.
We'll have the links below.
Space Flower.
Space Flower.
Yeah. We like kind of stumbled upon that name when we booked our first gig, and it was like, we need something. And it stuck, and people seem to dig it, and it feels like it fits the band. So I have a great time jamming with the band. We play psychedelic surf rock. But I love playing. I used to play in a neo soul night in like the house band. That was years ago in San Diego. So I've been looking for a band to play with, or at least produce music with people in that style. Like I think just kicking back with a combo and playing some neo soul, some jazz inspired R&B stuff is some of my favorite. Funk. I played in some funk groups for years. And now I'm sort of just experimenting with finding new voices and new outlets, different genres. And when we formed this surf rock band, I was like, this is a great vehicle for me to get really creative.
Right.
In a style that feels true to me, where I sing. Whereas in a lot of the soul groups and funk bands, I'm pretty devoted to playing guitar.
You've kind of changed my mind, because I think like visually, it's like there's certain things that I like to see, but like I could wear black for like a whole year straight.
Yeah.
Like just every single day. But I love seeing the way your approach to colors, honestly, on your graphic art and your music and the art behind your music too. And what's crazy is like I've honestly, like, not even kidding, there's probably been 5 times where I've just been walking and a woman has approached me and said she really liked this shirt.
All right.
And it changed my whole entire mentality, because I was like, I was sitting there, I was like, maybe I should like add some color to like the clothes I wear.
It's opening combos. I like that. I need to wear that shirt.
There's a great meme where it shows a dude look at another dude, And the dude looking at the dude's like, does he know he really got that on right now? And then the dude who's wearing it, in his head, there's a mind blow. He's like, I really got this on right now.
Perfect.
I was like, hey, Brent's got something. He's got something dialed in. He's got
All right. Love to hear it.
Dude, I mean, I wrote these questions from my own curiosity.
Cool.
So I'm loving picking your mind apart about these things. What's your perspective on having a muse? And do you have a reoccurring muse?
Man, I loved this question too. Tell you the truth, I've been journaling these questions over the last couple days. And I thought to myself, man, I wish I could remember exactly what I'm journaling right now.
That's all good.
Because there was a couple quotes that came to mind. Have you guys read the book, The Art of War? I'm sure I've
dabbled in it, but I'm out myself. I didn't finish, but I've definitely read some excerpts.
Yeah, it is a book you can thumb through, and like
everything
has
he
amazing stuff
said.
to help guide your journey.
Right.
Yeah, Stephen Pressfield, War of Art, and he's really into the muses. So that was the first thing that came to mind. And one thing I love about that book is like it's so well written, and it's not like fluffy, but he sort of surprises you with how very like esoteric and how much he talks about like the other realm. Call it God.
Interesting. Yeah.
He uses the word angels, I think, pretty frequently, or muses.
Mm-hmm.
And so the other thing I came across was this quote, and I'll paraphrase it because I don't remember exactly. This might be it exactly. Inspiration exists, but it finds us at work. Is something Pablo Picasso said.
I dig that.
Yeah, it's like, and that's something that Pressfield talks about a lot in the book, is that step one is show up. If you're a writer, you don't want to write, your mind is always going to be telling you that today's not the day, now's not the time.
Right.
That's pretty much the whole premise of the book, is like he coined the term resistance with a capital R, and you're going to find all the reasons or whatever, something in your mind is going to tell you like, today's not the day, take the day off, you got stuff to do, I didn't have enough coffee, whatever it may be. Sometimes valid excuses, but do your best to get past it and just get moving.
Yeah,
and that's when the muses start to show up.
Dude, that's dope.
So that's sort of the first part of my answer there. And then the next thing I arrived at, as far as a reoccurring muse, is the ocean.
Oh.
And I find just great peace and inspiration from whether it's surfing, swimming, or just chilling by the beach, like with a journal, a guitar. It's somewhere that I go if I'm going through a hard time. And then also has been like the scenery for so many amazing moments in my life.
Yeah.
So that's something I say, like, sometimes, we just need to fill up our cup.
Yeah.
If you do, because inspiration, there are times where, of course, you show up, you work on your craft every day, you pick up your guitar, you play your piano, whatever it may be. But undoubtedly, there are times where something strikes.
Yeah.
And how that works, I don't think it's for us to fully understand, and that's the beauty of it. But as long as you keep showing up, I do believe the muse will continue to visit. And anytime I hit sort of like a writer's block, or lately I've been really focused on learning other music, expanding my vocabulary, specifically in jazz and bebop. And I'll find myself thinking, oh, dude, like, what about writing songs? Like, I haven't written anything for like, whatever, 2 months. And this voice creeps in that goes like, oh, you might, like, don't lose that. What if, if you don't work on it, then you're not going to be creative. And I'll remind myself, like, you switch gears and it might not happen the day you sit down to be like, okay, I want to write a song now or do a new piece of art, but it'll come.
Yeah.
as you open yourself up to it. And if I really need it, or consistently, I know that it works, I'll go fill up my cup. I'll go down to the ocean. And that is a reoccurring muse that I can count on to fill up my cup.
Dude, that's dope.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think now that I'm obviously I know a little bit about you. I think over the years, and I mean that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, man.
As a surfer, as someone who's lived the beach life and seen it maybe from even an ascended angle, I would dare say.
Sure, I'll take that.
Yeah.
What about you guys? Like, what's the main source? Do you have a primary muse at the moment?
Do you want to go? Or you want me to go first?
Yeah. I find I count myself lucky because I think I find inspiration in a lot of different things. So I'll give you like a real physical one that like boils my blood, and then a real spiritual one. I think it's fun. We actually just had this conversation just a second ago when we were getting Celsiuses. There's a gentleman, shout out to him, a neighbor of ours, who consistently walks around the block. And this man, a couple years back, was probably over 300 pounds.
Okay.
Could have been pushing 4.
Could have been pushing 4. Big guy.
Yeah.
Already tall, so he just looked bigger than life. And I came out, we went to the car this morning. I said, hey, man. He was walking, and he's got to be, he's in the 200s now. He was looking great.
All right.
He's looking fantastic.
Let's go.
And then like he's just doing his walk, same thing. This time he had a Celsius in his hand, so I got super pumped because he just had it. He was like, hey, and he kept going. Great guy. But we've seen this man walk around our block through rain, thunderstorms, sunshine.
It's like actually like a phenomenon to like actually see, because you're like, it's been like 3.5 years of us watching this guy walk around the block, and like literally it was like storming, raining one day, and I was like pulling up to the house and I just see him like just waddling. And dude, I mean,
so that must have been years ago.
Yeah,
because it sounds like he's made a pretty big transformation.
Yeah.
for that time.
Very cool.
But dude, insane.
I love
consistency. So my inspiration for consistency, other than my siblings and their accomplishments, is definitely him. Just that day to day.
Does he know that?
I don't know.
It'd be very cool to let him,
Yeah.
It's kind of funny sometimes to like flag somebody down like that, because you don't know if it might be maybe a little uncomfortable to be like, oh, dude, like I saw you lost a ton of weight. Great. But usually I find people are pretty like receptive, and they're pretty stoked to hear you.
Yeah. He might know he has some prestige because we're pretty animated whenever we say hi.
Yeah.
It's not like, hey, we're like, oh, hey man, what's up? Like we're like, he just seeing him, we get like amped.
Love it.
And so he might, we haven't like touched on subject matter, but he might know that he's inspiring some people around him.
That's actually hilarious, because it's probably like from him, he's like, dude, there's these 2 black guys who like
really like me.
they like every time they like slowly I'd be like, hey, and now it's like giving him dap. Like I ran by him a couple times. I was like coming back from a run. I gave him like a high five when I was passing him. I was like, dude.
Yeah.
So he's like, dude, these guys are just getting more and more over the years. They've gotten more and more pumped.
Next time you see him, you guys just need to go off. Like
my quote was, I said, hey man, da da da. Then we got in the car. And I said, and I looked at Armin, I said, what the Celsius goated? And I looked at Armin, I said, I love him. That was my word for word what I said.
We need a Celsius sponsorship.
Yeah, he got me. I was getting souped up. You could have sworn I was Superman at one point when I was talking about him. So that's one of my muses for consistency. I just find it in everyday men. I think that everyone has something to give to the world. Kind of like you said, everyone's a creator.
Yeah.
And I think there's real beauty in people. And when they, you can tell when someone's soul in it. His soul is in his consistency. And it's just being able to see it every day. I know I come home. Yeah. I do a 2-hour commute there, 2-hour commute back. That's telling you how I work. And sometimes I'm burnt, right? Bumper traffic, my knees hurt. I sit outside sometimes. I'm like, you sit in your car and you're just like, oh. And I was like, I don't even want to like finish off my day. I'm so burnt out. And I see he does this circuit multiple times through the day. So I'll look up. I feel like, man, I gave everything I could today. And I see this man 8 p.m., 9 p.m. walking. I said, let me get my goof butt out this car and handle my day
All right.
so I can put some respect on this man's name.
For sure.
So that's one of them.
One of the biggest inspirations for me, and we're talking creatively now instead of just like work ethic, but right now we're building out a series that we're going to release, and the whole idea of this series is assortment of videos, but they're all like fitting themes that are very personal to us from our lives. And I think right now, creatively, the things that are sticking out to me the most are like these normal, seemingly everyday conversations you might have with someone, but the lasting impact they can have. You know, like
super cool.
Like, for example, I went to this party with my friends and I like hung out and there was one of their kids' birthdays. So I like brought my daughter and we're all jamming around or whatever and all that stuff. And we had a blast. So I don't get to hang out with them too often just because of schedules. And obviously we're all grown and families and what have you. But I got back in the car after hanging out and she was like, Dad, why do you pretend to be happy?
Wow, that's deep. Kids are a trip,
isn't that?
Yeah.
Isn't that? And I said something along the lines of, I said, I'm not feeling very expressive right now, but I am happy on the inside. So I want to make sure that I'm showing them that I'm happy. But she was like, yeah, but I can tell, like, when you're smiling, I can tell that it's not like,
wow,
you know, real.
Huh.
You know, and for her, that's nothing. It's in her head. And then she's like, I want to color when I get home, you know, like, you know,
Yeah.
it's whatever. But I mean, and it happens with adults too. I mean, when I'm talking to Quentin, when I'm talking to my older brother, all these, you know, normal words and little situations that pass us by. And I'm really focused on the difference between heaven and earth. And what does heaven on earth look like? You know, what does it look like when people are treating people as they would like to be treated? You know, my daughter's in 3rd grade, and I just remember I was talking to her the other day, and she was like screwing around. I was trying to have her like spell this thing or something like that, and she knew how to spell it, but she was like screwing around. And I was like, hey, listen, I was like, I know you're extremely smart. And you know you're smart, but people will treat you like you're dumb if you do that. Mm. And I was like, it's sick how people treat each other. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, just the importance of perception. And then people are arrogant in a way that they think people aren't complex. So they judge you in half a second. And they're like, that's all there is to them. You know, and it's kind of sick. It makes I hate it, I think. You know, like I've always hated it. Totally. Now that I think it's just something that I've like kind of like, you know, compartmentalized and put in its own little section.
But in order to get by in society.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I think part of it is that we also recognize that tendency in ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's something that I've been focused on. It's interesting that you mentioned that because I'll try to remind myself not to identify with those thought patterns,
right?
Even when I exhibit them,
right?
And be like, I don't actually think that, you know, right? Whatever. Maybe somebody is fumbling on their words. I'm not like, a voice might creep in and go, oh, like he's dumb. It's like, no, I don't actually think that. But in another regard, that made me think of when I was a kid. I remember going through this phase where I realized that saying dumb stuff in class got a lot of laughs.
Right, right.
And I would get booted out of class in 7th grade on like a regular basis.
Right.
and have to stand outside of the class because I said, I don't know what I would say. I guess I was pushing the envelope or whatever, stirring up the class. And the teacher would send me outside of class. And then I'm looking in the window and I'm like, oh, like, you know, whatever. I'm in 7th grade. I really want to be accepted, cool, funny.
Right.
I want the girls that I have a crush on that like me. And I'm like, oh, I'm getting attention. They're looking at me. And people, I guess you think like, oh, it's like, it's so silly, but like kind of like a bad kid.
Yeah,
you know.
we're cut from the same cloth.
Yeah. And
That was our jam back in middle school and high school.
Totally. It works for a while. But it's sort of similar whether it's like being like the dumb jock or the cute dumb girl.
Yeah.
Sometimes we accidentally internalize that. And so I could so see that, you know, I'm not a parent, but I certainly, you know, have friends with their kids or and you see kids have this incredible way of just assuming identities. And I'm sure you're like, where did this come from?
Right.
But maybe she got some laughs at one point in time being like, I don't know how to spell that.
Right.
And, you know, you see it all the time. The kids start chuckling and it's kind of like, oh, this is funny. So it's awesome that you were able to identify that and be like, hey, you know, careful.
Yeah. My whole thing is like, I just want her to recognize, you know, like understand, be aware, and then you're going to make your own decisions. You know, like I definitely don't want to make her decisions for her. And she actually has like, I mean, I think all kids do, but I mean, she has like kind of like a, you know, a divine understanding of what she wants to do and the person she wants to be. My hypothesis is that all kids do. And then, you know, society and parents and everyone kind of cuts it out of them, chops it up and hacks it as a bad hack job.
Yeah.
But she's special. High emotional intelligence, very intelligent. I was explaining how to build a computer when she was like 2 years old.
Yeah.
She was like, eh, and I explained every point, but she would be like this.
Yeah.
Like it was crazy. Like that girl.
She's like, give me this screwdriver.
I know that's a very far tangent, but I would say like something that is a muse for me is these conversations or these seemingly small instances that have, you know, lasting and powerful impact.
What you both touched on is something that, again, I'm trying to cultivate on a day-to-day basis. And it's so easy to lose sight of just in our immediate surroundings. Because like mine was like the ocean is like, that's one that I see all the time.
Yeah.
But we also have a tendency to be like these really grandiose, like, oh, I'm inspired by this ultimate achiever that I really look up to.
Right.
And I think it's really cool that both of you mentioned things in your day-to-day that sometimes we don't appreciate. And especially those conversations, like these types of conversations. And that's something I appreciate about our friendship is I get this great source of inspiration and groundedness.
Yeah, I feel like
important.
Sometimes it becomes cliche when they're like, you got to look around and smell the roses. The roses are beautiful.
Yes.
By that, I really mean like people, but
the
roses are beautiful.
Right.
You know, if you really stop and just really think about
it.
Absolutely.
We walk right by it all the time.
Oh, yeah.
We forget about the conversation.
Even if I have allergies, I still love roses. And they beat me up. I do want to match you with the grandiose one. Spiritually, I sing at my church most Sunday mornings. And
all right.
I will say that I do think I hit a moment where I have infinite epiphanies while I'm like singing to God and I'm setting the mood for a peace and a joy for people.
Absolutely.
And I get some of my best ideas and some of my most humbling thoughts.
Cool.
I do think it not only it's filling my cup. I think you can see a different. There's the people that know me on the day-to-day know it's like, okay, he went to church this Sunday. He's
cool.
He's in okay. Or they look at me like
it's been a minute.
He needs to, boy's acting different. And like, you know, whether it's I'm a little more quick to anger or I get a little more frustrated a little faster, I feel that, you know, and I think singing in general, but specifically, I do think there's certain chords that, at least for me, it just cleanses and rinses my mind musically.
Mm-hmm.
And then it allows my brain, I feel like I get unshackled.
Yeah.
I feel like throughout the week I can get chained down. I feel like it unshackles me. And some of like my best ideas have been when I'm like singing to God.
Cool.
And I feel like I'm a big musicality person. Like I'm a big Chance the Rapper. I'm big on musicality. I'll chase it. Yeah, the production.
Agreed.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely.
I feel like when the musicality is right, I feel like I hear angels singing. It's just beautiful.
Oh, they're there.
Yeah, they're there. So I'm like, oh, and like that really inspires me I know I get like I can see it. I can see, sometimes I feel like I get to a point where I can see music, and then I see then all these ideas come through that normally I wish I had those all the time, because sometimes I feel like a brick. I'm kind of
Well, that I guess would be heaven on earth, or what have you, when everything is always in alignment.
Right.
But it's what we strive for, to create that alignment as much as possible. And yeah, I resonate with all that. That's amazing.
When you're creating, and this is kind of just like a riff question, but when you're creating, like, what are some of the things that come to mind? Like, specifically, I've heard people say when they're playing a riff on the guitar, they see shapes or something like that. Like, what's your mentality? Because it's obviously you're not thinking about, some of it's got to be so practiced and rehearsed, and not every finger placement is like consciously thought about, but there's just like feelings you're trying to look for, right? Or how would you describe it?
The creative process is so amazing and so elusive. Lately, I wrote a couple of my favorite songs, maybe that I've written ever, for the band. We're going into the studio this month, actually.
Right.
So very excited. We got linked up with a band that we like. We played a show at this awesome venue called Dreamland in Malibu. And then a few weeks later, this really rad band that I've been listening to for years played there as well. And we wound up chatting with their drummer, who we're going to be recording with in less than 2 weeks. And he referred us to the producer that they've been working with. So it's really exciting in the sense that we're working with the same producer that they've worked with at the same studio. We'll see what all comes of it.
Dope.
So that's going to be an exciting opportunity to really dig in on a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, and see how well I can help foster a creative environment. But leading up to this, I've written a couple of my favorite songs for this project, at least. And it's like we were talking about earlier. You show up, you work. I've written a bunch of songs that I don't even show to the band or anybody. And then a handful that I've brought to the table, and they're maybe not, my absolute favorites. And then there's those ones that just really flow. But for, one of them, I thought this was actually a really rad way that this came to be. And this is definitely a tangent, but collaboration. And I guess this sort of speaks to what you both were just mentioning about, and it's sort of been a central theme in our discussion is community, but we haven't specifically talked about collaboration.
Right.
And it's something that I think when I was younger, I didn't quite know how to do as well. And I'm still very much learning, as I think we all are throughout our lives. And different environments, different writing teams vary drastically. But we get this idea that, like, as artists, like, everything needs to come like just from us. And especially, I think musicians and songwriters can be guilty of that. Perhaps only surpassed by painters who have like pretty good reason to feel that way a lot of the time. I see some people do amazing jams where multiple artists are on one canvas. Right. It's a little bit more of a solitary thing. But even in that sense, art is always a conversation, is something I always say.
Right.
So it's okay to borrow from people, and don't think that all of your inspiration needs to come strictly from you. Like, we're always can be taking in stuff from our surroundings. So with this particular song, I suggested to my bandmates that we all write 2 to 3 songs each, bring them to the table. And each of the bandmates had songs that I thought had some cool elements to them. And I took those elements and reinterpreted them. And wound up writing this song that everyone in the band is really into, which always feels great for me when I'm like, okay, sweet. I guess I hit the nail on the head with this one. I'm figuring it out. But it really was like, once I started moving on it,
Yeah.
everything was really organic. And for me, it's a combination of like years of studying music theory, so that it's a pretty rare occasion that I'm deliberately looking up like a compositional device
Gotcha.
and being like, oh, where should I move this piece of music?
Yeah.
Because a lot of it is ingrained. And so I'm like, okay, here's like, I could borrow this chord from this parallel key,
Right.
whatever it may
Right.
be. But a lot of the time, yeah, because I've been doing it for as long as I have, my hand will just go there.
Gotcha.
And that's where it's almost like being guided by the muses, a divine source, where I'm like, and I think that's what we all strive for as creatives.
Yeah.
I think all of us get glimpses of it, and we're after that feeling that you described of when you leave church on Sunday after you've cleared all of the constraints that build up over the week, and you feel this freedom to create and to be yourself.
Right.
As much as we can achieve that in our lives, the better.
How has your time in Orange County influenced your craft? But I also want to kind of add on to that, like, who do you think, for on a personal level, was like most influential in your artistic development? Meaning like not someone that you like maybe looked at from like a famous point of view or something like that, but someone that you're like were either friends with or associates with that really had, you would say, an impact on your artistic voice.
Man, that one's tough. I guess because I really appreciate so many people in my life.
Right.
That have had like so many names just went through my mind of like close friends. I'm like my mom, my dad, my one of my best friends, Jeff, who just moved to Santa Fe.
So maybe let's chop it up like this too. I want to add this in here. Like, was there a person that kind of served that purpose while you were in Orange County? And was there a person that kind of served that purpose while you were in San Diego?
Well, I'd say my time in Orange County, like from an artistic perspective, was sort of conflicted. Really like looking for who I am. And I think creatively, I mean, I got in a lot of trouble. In high school and early college. And I think part of that was having this sense of like being different, being a creative, and not really having a community that I identified with.
Wow.
I had my friends for sure, of course. And we would skateboard and surf and party and play sports. But finding people who I could vibe with musically and creatively and artistically, like I was like a fish out of water, I felt like. And there was a lot of turmoil in my family life with my parents. So there wasn't really a sense of like a strong foundation. And so I think that manifested itself in some like unhealthy behaviors, but who's to say what our path is meant to be? Right now I'm reading a book by Quincy Jones.
Oh, okay. Cool.
I was like, wow, dude, I did not know this guy's story in his early years.
It's thick. It's deep.
Yeah. He's 88 at the time of writing the book. And it's just this beautiful like reminder of like, keep going.
Yeah. Keep
doing your thing. I think the first chapter is like, turn pain into passion, something like that.
Wow.
And in that regard, it was hard to find. I had some great, but then again, I look back and I'm like, man, this teacher, Miss Prasia, was so cool and so creative and like introduced me to so much good music.
Yeah.
I was in her ceramics class for 3 years. And so were a bunch of my friends.
Shout out Miss Prasia.
Miss Prasia, yeah. And Mr. Roby was cool.
Mr. Roby.
Those were my art teachers.
Oh, that's sick.
And I think they gave me a hint of like, you can find that.
Right.
And then moving to San Diego, on the other hand, like was this exciting time for me of being surrounded by other musicians and being like, whoa, I'm in this like crowd of people that are 18 to 20, and we all like play instruments and we're all in various college bands. And I guess if I had to just pick one at that point in time, my buddy Jeff at the time, like we got introduced from mutual friends and it was like, oh, you guys are both great guitar players. You should jam together. And it was like really quick that we were like, oh dude, we're going to make a band. Let's start writing music. So that was my first friend where we wrote a lot of music together.
That's cool.
Yeah, we'd still chat all the time to this day. He came to visit in LA recently, and it was actually a really cool experience where he sat in with one of my band members now and played like a bunch of our songs. You know, he's a great musician, so we're just like called out the chords and we sang our original music and he played along. And I was like, wow, it's like a merging of worlds where like he and I were in a band, like the first band where I really was like playing shows at venues. I don't think I was 20. I might have been 19 or 20. I just remember like our first shows, I always had like X's on my hands or wristbands because we weren't allowed to drink yet. So that was a long time ago. And then now being in a band, 15 years later plus, and having him come chill and jam with us.
Oh, that's dope. Cool. What project or projects are you excited about right now? And make sure you bring up like any EPs or all the, Space Flower things that are out now that people can check out. And then we'll just like add the links in the bottom too. And then I also want to get links from you for like your graphic designs and your art.
Thank you.
And he's open to collaboration. He does a lot of great work. I've hired him for clients too. So, I mean, super talented graphic artist and designer. But yeah, take it away. Bro.
Space Flower.
If this needs to get cut it out. But I told you actually,
it's
my buddy, another friend of mine, Dom, he lives in San Diego. He's always like, yo, send me beats, bro. Like I'll write to him. And I haven't had a ton of stuff to share with him because a lot of the time I'm finishing these projects with other groups or just my own projects. And for Francisco's Automotive, I made this beat where I was like, I'll do this sort of like West Coast type beat. I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
And Francisco was not feeling it. And he went with some like acoustic guitar. It sounds like the beginning of like a educational video.
It does.
But luckily, he was happy with the motion graphic that I made. And
very cool.
Which was super appreciated to be a part of that project with you guys. But I had this beat that he didn't want. And I just threw that in there like literally for fun. Cause I was like, I do audio and motion graphics. So why don't I make a track for this? And so I sent the track to my buddy and he finished it like not long ago and made this really dope song. It's on Spotify.
He's like, he didn't want it. It was a banger.
I love what he wrote to it too. It's like, it's called Don't Get Distracted. And it's all about just like buckling down, like do your thing, get it done, trust your intuition. But as far as projects go right now, I've been pretty light on graphic design. So I'm definitely very open to collaboration and being hired. But on the other hand, part of that is because I've been really focused on music.
Right.
We're going into the studio this month. I have to keep reminding myself like, bro, you got a plan.
Yeah.
You deliberately have been easing up on graphic design. We're going into the studio with a producer that I really admire,
Right.
and I'm excited to work with.
Yeah.
So that's coming up here soon. Currently, Space Flower has an EP that's out on Spotify, and I think maybe 2 weeks before we released the EP with Space Flower, I released a lo-fi beat tape album.
Yeah.
Which was the first project I signed with a label. Really small indie label out of the Netherlands. But they've been doing a good job of promoting it, and they got one of the tracks. I think they did. At least they were the ones who told me that it was on a Apple Music curated playlist.
Sick.
Which is dope. That's the first time where I've had something that's either I'm looking obviously to get on a Spotify curated playlist, because those will just blow up your Spotify numbers. But either way, counting all the blessings. And so that's all been very encouraging.
Yeah.
And I'll continue releasing music. That's under Slumber, like taking a nap. Slumber, SLUMBR. No
Yeah,
B.
we'll have all the links below
Cool.
too.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll have all the links.
However, as far as graphic design, I did just last week. We were talking about skateboarding earlier before we started recording. You guys remember Day One Song?
Wait, I'm trying to think. That sounds
Because
super familiar.
Rodney Mullen versus Day One Song was like one of the iconic skate videos. Like these two dudes that are just among the best of the best of like street skaters.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
the dude's a
I've seen
legend.
it. Yeah.
So I met him last week.
You met him?
Yeah.
Oh, dang.
We got to chill together for a little while. If all goes well, I'll be designing. So he is a regular and has become friends with a brewery owner in Lomita. The brewery is called Burnin' Daylight. Excuse me. And I got introduced to Burnin' Daylight through a friend.
Yeah.
And the owner, Brendan, is just this super rad guy, has built this brewery that's like a community hub. And so I was down there last week because we're working on some labels together, which is the first time in a while where I get to do some hand-drawn graphic design, because I've done a lot of corporate stuff over the last couple of years for pro sports partnerships and stuff like that, which has been awesome.
Yeah.
And, but much closer to my passions of drawing,
Right.
Is something where I actually get to do some digital drawing. I mean, I started this one with pencil and paper in my sketchbook. And so I got 2 labels to knock out for them. And then it's looking like up next, they're going to do a collaboration beer with Day One Song. They already have one, and they made skateboard decks for it and stuff. And he was just the nicest guy. Like, it's just Burnin' Daylight is just this awesome brewery. It just reminds me of like your classic like local watering hole where people go hang, they chat. And I attribute that to like Brendan and his family just are great people. And they seem to have created this environment that cultivates that.
Oh, that's cool.
So on the graphic design front, that's what I'm stoked on right now. And musically, getting ready to go into the studio with Johnny Bell. He's the owner of Jazz Cats Studio in Long Beach. And we're going to take it one step at a time, working with the drummer from Sunroom, which is the band that I've been listening to now for years.
Yeah.
We got linked up with and just got
sick.
along well. Yeah, Thomas, he's a really rockin' drummer, like just super in the pocket on time. But we haven't really been playing with him yet.
Right.
But we've done one recording session with him, went super well. So we're just trusting that the rest is all going to play out the way it's meant to. And it's going to be a great learning experience. And this year has very much been about pivoting back towards music. Because initially in 2017, I moved to LA.
Right.
Guns blazing,
Yeah.
just trying to work as a pro guitar player.
Right.
And there's a lot of competition out there. And I hardly knew anybody, amazingly.
Right.
I was in LA, in the community.
Right.
And what one friend I did know, shout out Corey Bice, you're the man, dude. Thank you. He got me plugged in at this amazing studio, Conway.
Okay.
And so that was where things shifted for me and I started working in the recording industry for the next 3 years. And then again, the pandemic totally shifted everything. I was now working at Record Plant Studios at that point in time and decided to leave and worked for a clothing company. And that was like a big change where I was like, all right, I love graphic design. I love drawing. I love art. Let's see if apparel is like the main place that I found exciting. And I first started just printing t-shirts for a company. And I literally got recruited thanks to an Instagram post, like within 3 months. So that's like, I know we've talked about that one a lot because I always bring up that story and it just feels like jump and the net will appear. And it was kind of like God had intervened and said like, here's a new course. And I didn't quite know where it was leading. And I guess that's life. Like I'm sort of back in a phase right now where I'm like, all right, I'm really being called to music.
Yeah.
I'm going to release some of my own stuff more under Slumber. I'm always looking to collaborate and I'm trying to play live as much as possible now, whether it be with other bands or my own. But yeah, sometimes we have to, I guess, take that leap of faith. And this one isn't quite as extreme as when I was like, all right, time's up. I got to move to LA. But I am shifting back towards music and getting into the studio and seeing what's going to come of it. And I'm excited for the year ahead. Of course, it always comes with some apprehension. But overall, I'm really looking to just up my stoke level and maintain the vision and do all the things, meditate, pray, and keep my eye on the prize.
Dude, that's fresh.
That's awesome.
Dude, there's so many things in this interview that I loved. This is like definitely one of my favorite interviews for sure because, this is really hitting on it's getting my creative juices just flowing already while we're talking.
Me too. I mean, that always happens when we chat.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I appreciate it so much.
Dude, so I'll let Quentin kind of ask the tying up the last question, and we'll definitely have you back maybe when you have more stuff you want to talk about or talk about your recording session or there's so much that we can kind of go back and talk about. We can do it months down the road though.
Cool.
But
dude, I love it. Yeah, the space is great. You guys got it dialed.
Yeah.
I appreciate being here.
Absolutely. So
just like you, we're really passionate about art, and it's always great to talk to another creative and
love
just
it.
Get in the weeds for fun and get lost in it. So we always love to ask this question to all the people we interview. I think it's a great one just to leave our viewers with something to chew on. But if you could sum up your journey thus far in either a word or phrase or sentence, something that maybe something just kind of comes to you.
All right. That's funny. I think this is the only question that I didn't journal about. And I thought, okay, one word or a phrase. And literally just like a light bulb went off. I've been really into the phrase, trust the process. Wow. I really want to just get it tattooed on my arm. That in all seriousness, I'm planning on doing that because I need that reminder all the time. And I did an art show, a collaborative show, not this past December, but the year before. And we titled it Trust the Process. And I've always wanted to make that like at least a yearly thing, maybe biannual. But with the band last year, we started playing a lot of shows that kind of took over. And so it seems to be this theme. Armin, you came to the show I did a few years ago. Yeah. And I like to, cap off the year with something in December. Last year, we did a big show in Venice Beach with the band at this venue called Winston House, which has since closed. Really, really cool venue and historic as well. So I was stoked we got to play it. But yeah, I would make it trust the process. And it's great that you asked that. And because it's a reminder for me again. And it really speaks to what we've been talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Is knowing that by taking the steps, showing up, working, and trusting it, and whether you want to also substitute the process with God,
Yeah.
that works too.
Yeah.
And the idea of doing the thing, and it's an active prayer, it's an active meditation, and through that we discover ourselves more deeply, and we can bring our gifts to the table. And I think that's something that we all need as a reminder as creatives as well, is that what we do is of value, no matter how big or small or what scale, or whether or not it makes you famous or makes money. Of course, I'm like everybody, I'm trying to build up the career as much as possible.
Right.
But for those who aren't trying to build a career in the arts, I always try to encourage them. It's of value. Like, you're going to discover yourself more, and people love it. You might think, oh, what I did is not that cool. But I guarantee you, enough people see it.
Right.
You're going to inspire somebody just to do it themselves as well.
Yeah.
So trust the process.
Dude.
That's great. I know me and Arm have been seeing the fruits of that recently in our personal, private, business, and artistic lives. So that hit me when you said that.
I see it.
I was like, man. So that's great. Yeah.
Dude, I just want to say thanks for coming by. Thank you for the reminder. It's always a constant source of inspiration and grounding too.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you, brother. All right.
Thereafter Media. See you guys next time.